Republicans are advancing towards control of the House, but by smaller margins than perhaps some had forecast. The Democrats, meanwhile, have flipped a Senate seat in Pennsylvania. Bloomberg's Kriti Gupta joins us now from Washington. So just from those two statements, Kriti, good to see you. It is not clear who's having a good night and who's doing either better in the numbers or better than expectation. Take us through some of the headlines.
Well, Anna, I have to say it's a pleasure to be with you I should say, in this hour instead of early edition. What's important to keep in mind, we're going to hit this later throughout the day as well, is simply that the big highlight that we've heard in the last couple of hours is that flipped Senate seat. Basically, the holders of the Democratic seats that those were the ones that got reelected. The ones that held those Republican seats, they kept them as well. This game changer in Pennsylvania is really crucial. And remember, this is the state that tends to be this kind of national bellwether for the 2024 presidential election. Historically, the winner of that Senate race tends to be the party that then wins the 2024 presidential election. This time, this is why it's such a bellwether. You're also getting the results far earlier than expected. And remember, this has major implications for policy as well. That's on the Democratic side. On the Republican side, what's crucial here is simply the fact that you're starting to see a little bit of a divergence in the party. Let me highlight a key race for you, specifically in Florida, with Ron DeSantis coming out and winning re-election as governor. He is thought of as a contender for the 2024 presidential election against President Trump. And what's important is that a lot of the Trump endorsements, a lot of the people who were vocal and very supportive of President Trump, those were the seats that actually lost their Republican seats across the country. You saw this in New Hampshire. You saw this in the governor's race in New York, as well as Wisconsin as well. So there is a thought process here that sure, Republicans are making some progress, but the idea that MAGA Republicans, the same momentum from the Trump era, perhaps we're not seeing that.
Kriti, good morning. Great to have you on the show. What's the investor takeaway from what we know so far, particularly for traders who are just arriving into their desks in Europe at this hour? What should they be thinking about?
There is one word that should be haunting every investor's playbook right now, and the word is regulation. And it's not just about tech. It's not just about antitrust. Remember, 2 years ago, this is something that was absolutely priced into a Biden victory, that President Biden would go hard on the likes of big tech, your Facebooks, your Amazons, your Apples, and now, of course, your Twitters as well. That is simply not the case when you're starting to see Republicans come in further and further. There is a thought that perhaps that antitrust legislation will get slowed down, as well as some of the legislation, some of the profit taxes on oil companies as well. Remember, Republicans have different priorities. They want to start spending more on defense. They want to start spending more on perhaps energy investments. This is why the Pennsylvania race was so important, because energy investment and pipeline infrastructure in that state was a major voting issue. So you're already seeing parts of that priced into the market. Defense stocks, for example, have been outperforming. Oil stocks, for example, have been outperforming. Whereas, for example, cannabis stocks, big pharma, has been underperforming a lot of the priorities for Democratic candidates as well. The question is, does that stay? At the end of the day, Mark, gridlock is still the best scenario for a lot of these markets.